Hey everyone, it's Katan from bossbabeblog.com. And today I'm just here to talk about that feeling of being like drained, tired, and just getting to the point where you're like, I can't give anything to anyone. Part of that might be due to the fact that there needs to be some boundaries created in your work and personal life. And I had to learn that. And I learned that through my own personal experiences of watching how people started to feel entitled to things that I was doing and I was, giving to them at the expense of my own time, you know? So I'm going to start this off with a story. I had an individual that knew of my services, they knew of me, right? And I had been talking about my services, my solutions for a while. Well, this individual decided that they wanted to advertise their business, but they chose to do it through a different agency, right? The agency ended up being a well-known agency. Everybody goes and talks about posting ads on this agency. So they went and they spent about $500 doing that, $400, $500 roughly on these ads, right? Okay. So now they've gone, they've spent $400 to $500 on these ads, and they didn't see what they were wanting to see from that. There was no followers, there was no subscribers, there was no shoppers, nobody made any purchases, nobody learned about their business and decided to reach out to them. Nothing came from that they could see, right? Um, so after hearing them talk about some of their grievances, not necessarily about this ad brand, because I didn't know that they went and spent that much money, but after hearing them talk about their grievances, I said, I think I have a solution for you. So I recommended one of my products or services that I felt like would be great for them. Now, after I recommended it, I'll never forget how I felt in this moment. This individual proceeded to say, "Oh, I don't have any extra money because I just spent $500 on X ads." And then they paused, like they were waiting for me to come in and say, "Oh, well, I can work with you." I just paused with them. We just stayed pausing together. And then after they, sensed the pause, then they were like, "Yeah, just wish that I was able to, but unfortunately I can't." And then they paused again, and I just paused with them. And then I just simply let them know, well, I completely understand that. That happens sometimes in business where you might invest something you don't feel like that was the best fit for you. Um, Here's my free resources if you ever want to take advantage of some of these. You can still, come to this event and advertise your brand at $0. You can still connect with these professionals. And that was where I left it. And I'm not going to speak for the individual and say how they felt or didn't feel after I left that response. Um, but respectfully, if you go and spend and invest your money that you were able to spend and invest somewhere else, you need to be going there to get your services. You need to be going there to get your support. You need to be going there to get this amazing, elaborate experience. Because this concept of I'm going to give you my bare minimum, bottom of the barrel, and then I'm going to go to someone else who doesn't even know my name and break bank for them is absolutely freaking insane. And it's a part of the reason why a lot of people in certain communities are unable to get to a better place because we are too busy going out of our way to go and drop money on people who don't even know of us, not really worried about us. But then we have people in our corner who are going hard for us in so many ways with very little funding and resources. And we act as if we can barely afford to do the bare minimum. We want to go for the cheapest of cheapest services. We want to ask a million questions before we just invest. And half the time, the prices that we're getting are already a steal. But because that business owner doesn't know their value at the time, they're thinking, it might be a little too high in their mind. But what they don't know, if they do some research, it's actually a steal. Whether the person who's purchasing it or not knows doesn't matter. It's the reality. If it's a steal, it's a steal. And, that experience, it taught me some things. Um, in that moment, it taught me that people are going to choose. They're going to make their own decision. And when they make their own decision, it's not my responsibility to pick up the pieces. Now, I can guide you in the direction of some things that might support you and help you, like I did. I offer those resources. but it's not my responsibility to pick up the pieces because you made a decision to go to somewhere else. I would love to help you, but it requires funding. It's not something that I'm able to do at a free price right now. I do a lot of stuff for free, but advertising and building your brand and stuff, I can't do that. So, you know, that was a teachable moment. Um, then I had another very teachable moment. And this was when I had an individual that were claiming they were really wanting some services. And I was trying to work with them. I was really trying to find a way to work with them, get them the services at a really great, price. Um, and in the process of doing all of this, that same individual expressed that they had went and spent X amount of money on something that was absolutely a non-necessity. And in that moment, I learned a valuable lesson. And that is that you got to stop thinking that people can't spend the money on you. You got to stop asking yourself, can you afford it? And you need to start asking yourself, are you willing to pay this? And if the answer is no, that's okay. You just need to move on to someone who is willing to pay it, who is willing to invest. Because everybody is not struggling so badly to where they cannot pay you. Now, maybe in the economy that we're going through now, you might see that a little more often, but even now, people are still spending money on things that they want, that they see the value in. So for this individual to go and just drop the amount of money that they did on this non-necessity thing and be so bold and cool about saying it to me, in the process, I'm over here trying to get you the best deal and work until my hands bleed. What? What? But again, it was a learning moment for me. And that was the moment that I took two lessons. That was a two in one. It was a combo. It was number one, you are not responsible for other people's growth. All you're responsible for is what you deliver, the quality you deliver, the information you provide, and the integrity of following through or operating with integrity in business. That's it. So in that moment, I released my need or my want to be responsible for their success because it was very clear that they were not willing to spend money on this said service at the price that it was. They were not willing to, but they were willing to go and spend money on this non-necessity item. So from that day forward, anytime that they talked or complained about not seeing the growth and the expansion in their brand, I never took them serious and I never tried to take accountability for their actions because you can't be serious about wanting to see that growth when you just got done talking about spending X amount of money on something that is not a necessity. We all have our wants. We all want to spoil ourselves. But at the end of the day, when you want something, you're going to go for it. So if you want that outfit, you're going to go buy it. If you want to be at that event, you're going to show up. If you want to see success in this business, you're going to invest in it. And I can't take accountability for your lack of focus on something that you say you're focused on or that you say you really want. And that was another huge lesson for me because here I am trying to push something that someone is not pushing for their own selves. Um, I had another moment. Um, it was an eye-opening moment. Um, Here I am working extremely hard, as I always do for my clients, collaborations, any of that. We work very hard over here, and I had an individual that was comfortable enough to basically make it clear that they were able to do something and they just didn't do it. And to know that it was a choice that you even thought in your mind, I'm just going to choose not to do this, even though you're able to, it showed me the reality that everybody really doesn't think like you, and you can't expect them to, and you can't expect yourself and other people because the way this individual was so comfortable with making it clear that it was just a choice that they didn't make, That's not anything I would have ever thought to do. I would have never, those words would have never left my mouth because my brain wasn't even, I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. When I heard the words come out of their mouth, it didn't make sense to me. And in that moment, it was a learning lesson. Sometimes we just have to accept that the way we think might be different from others, which is why we don't need to be worried about thoughts. We need to be worried about reality and facts. And reality and facts can be put on a contract, an invoice, an estimate. That's where we can see that. Anything else, we don't need to worry about it. So, that was a lesson for me. I said, well, I need to stop assuming that people can't do something because a lot of times people are able to. It's just not their priority. And that's okay because that can be their reality. It cannot be your priority. You can't sit over here, but it cannot be your priority over there. But you're not going to be here and it's not your priority. And that's a choice that I have to make. But when you don't pay attention to that, you allow people to be in your space that don't align with what it is you're trying to accomplish and achieve. And that can be counterproductive. So you don't need to try to control anybody. You don't need to be angry with anyone. You simply need to allow them to explore, just like you would want someone to let you explore until they find the right place for them. But in the meantime, they don't have to sit at your table just because you want them to be there, just because you're nice or just because you care about them. That doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't. Um, Another lesson I learned, you want the best for people, you think the best of people, and you are serious about showing up for people. Sometimes people are not always serious about that with you. And sometimes they will not be serious about it and think that they're supposed to get a level of access to you, like a friend or someone that cares about you. What the heck? No. If I host an event and you just say you come to the event and you just don't show up and you just keep not showing up to stuff, you think I want to be your friend? Why? Why would I want that? What kind of what? No. This is already a preview of what that's going to be. You committing or overcommitting and not following through consistently, and then not even having enough decency to communicate that you can't do something. Absolutely not. We're not friends. We will not go past that threshold because I don't want to talk to or be around people that can't even have enough consideration to say, hey, this didn't work, or hey, that didn't work out, or something, but like nothing, no acknowledgement. I'm not saying acknowledgement like you need to beg or cry or apologize. I'm just saying a simple communication. No, that's not a friendship. We can't be friends. That can't be a friendship. Because if it was my friend and she had something going on, I would communicate. And that's what we have to understand, that just because you like people doesn't mean that they're supposed to be in certain roles in your life. Sometimes people are exactly where they need to be. Sometimes a distant friend is a distant friend for a reason. You know, a client is a client for a reason. Um, it's okay if you have people in your life that are more than one of those categories, but it's important to understand that just because you like people doesn't mean that they're supposed to be in certain roles in your life. Sometimes people are exactly where they need to be. Sorry, y'all. But like I was saying, everybody don't need to be in every category. They don't, because everybody has not earned every category. Every category, and everybody may not want to earn every category, and that's okay. But just know that we can't just be giving away categories and people have not earned them. We're not going to do that. We're not going to degrade ourselves simply because we like people. Yeah, I like you too, but how do you show up? Because if it doesn't make sense for the place that you're trying to sit in, you just can't be there. Unfortunately, there's levels to this, and you'll never get that level of access that you're thinking you're entitled to when you're giving the crumbs. People like to give crumbs and then they want all of your access. It doesn't work that way. So when we stop doing that, we'll start seeing better relationships. And for the people who are accepting those crumbs, when we stop accepting those crumbs, you will start to see people either step up or step off. And you're going to find somebody who appreciates you. And that's the message. So I hope anyone who's going through some things, anyone who's feeling low, take the message. Remember that. Hold it dear to your heart, or your business, wherever. But we can't just keep giving our all to people who have shown us that they're just not willing to invest on that level. Why? For what? I'm not. Life is not promised, and I keep saying this on my lives. It's not promised. I'm not spending another second worrying about a person who didn't even have enough consideration to worry about me. I'm not spending a second investing and pouring into a person who didn't have enough consideration to invest in themselves by purchasing the services, by purchasing the resources that I'm able to provide at a high quality. Because I know that what I'm providing is above average. I know that. So I'm not spending another second in providing that richness and degrading myself in the process simply because I like someone or simply because I'm thinking that a person needs help. No, there are resources for people that need help. I do have that, and I do host events. But just like anything else in this world, it's something you got to go and get for yourself. And you go get it, you continue to grow, you get to a place where you're able to invest a little more, even if it's not with me, it's somebody else. But input, output, like I talked about on my video on Instagram, which may or may not be up by now, by the time you watch this video, but input, output. You put in 50, you get 50. You don't put in 50 and then expect 1,000. It's not how I'm rolling in my life. So, yeah, that's the message. I hope that anyone who tends to be a people pleaser, tends to put themselves last, tends to make excuses or reasons for other people to justify going above and beyond for them when they have shown you that the crumbs is what they're going to give you and where they've placed you, who tends to be that person, that go to person for a lot of people, it's time to go ahead and embrace not being that person. That's the message. Embrace not being that person so that you don't have to keep embracing the idea of degrading yourself simply based off the fact that you like or care about a person. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.